So one of the things you said that was really deep is when we're raising our children, we're raising a generation. And that really, it's not about this child, it's about a whole generation and their interactions. You also talked about our children mirroring our behaviors. So if we're seeing our children behave in ways that are unsatisfactory, we have to check what we're doing to make them behave like that. I found that really profound, because there are times when you look at the child and you're like, this person is not doing this. And then you have to look at yourself as well. So those are two really key things that stood out. But that whole answer was very in-depth. And I think there was a lot of value in that. So we typically aim to finish at 12:30, but for everybody here, I'm anticipating that we're going to run over time a little bit, because we need to leave a segment for questions at the end. And there's still quite a few things for us to talk about. So the next two questions I'm going to merge into one. One of them is how you pay attention and identify the child's talents, because a lot of us want them to engage in extracurricular activities, but how do we make sure that those extracurricular activities are reflecting what the child's interests and talents are? So that's number one. I think let's leave it at that. We can merge the next two. I'll merge the next two. Let's leave this one alone.
Yeah. So to be honest, this is always I wouldn't say it's always a difficult. I don't usually like to give like a very blanket answer when it comes to understanding what your child's maybe talents or what their uniqueness, weakness, or whatever that can be. I usually like to be like a one-on-one type of thing. But what I would always say first is, every one of us, we have to pay attention to our children. But many times, even in paying attention, you might not necessarily be able to say, oh, this child's talent is to be artistic, or to be creative, or to be this. And that's why I always encourage, give your children the opportunity to learn as many things as they can learn, as you have the ability to expose your children. Is in exposing your children to different types of, activities, opportunities. That's when you are able to really identify what this child is all about. Some children, it's clear, maybe when they start school, you start to see, okay, maybe they're doing well in some certain areas than the other type of areas. But some is in, let's say you have young children, babies, you give a child to maybe a paper, let's say want to scribble something, and you see the child is not just even scribbling, he's doing it in a unique way. But many times we're not paying attention. Just say, just disturbing my house, doing this to my house, cluttering my house, all those type of things. But you see this child. But when you pay attention, you see that this is not the usual. This is unique. That's when you start to say, okay, maybe this child would be good in this. You see some children, they are playing with Legos. Many of us, we see Legos as dirt or something that would disorganize your house. Whereas give them Legos, let them build. That's when you see some children, they cannot build anything. They'll just be using they'll be throwing. But you see some children, they'll sit down, they'll pay attention and be building. You already know, okay, this is a build out, this person can create. Then that is how you start to build and redirect and build on that. Not that the child will stay building Legos. So you now start to give the child opportunities to build and create things, right? And there's so many types of things that you can Google and say, oh, how can my child build a boat? How can my child build? And that's how you're able to discover and support your children to be the best of themselves within that, that gifting. Some children, you just see that they start to draw. You see your 2 years old is drawing like but many of us will just say, it's nice. Whereas you say, oh my God, what can I do? Your next thing is like, how can I, what resources do I need to, get for this child to learn to draw more? Do I need to register this child in a school that it can help and enhance that gift. So it's just paying attention. But before you pay attention, you explore, you expose, and all that. You see your child dancing. It's not, I want to learn how to dance. You see me if you go on my Instagram page. I'm dancing. I'm even getting better. But I admire when I see young children that can dance. It's not normal. But some of us, we say, is it dance that you want to use to, go and study your book, go and do your assignment, blah, blah, blah. Instead of you say, it's dance. It's not, because even me, I cannot shake myself like that too. Okay, we'll see how we can, because there's a way you balance studies and all that with gifts and all that. And say, okay, we need to help this child be the best dancer the child can be. Many of us, our talents, they've, subdued it in some sort of way. Maybe we would have been billionaires in our talent, but we are now thousandaire in somebody else's talent. And you can have a talent and still be that professional, whatever you want to be. But I've seen it play out that when you have a gift or talent in something, it just brings the full package. So exposure, opportunities, and you now start to pay attention. So when they get to some certain stages as well, they start to take courses. Like for my children, when they started to use Microsoft Word and Excel and all that, which I would come to that point to also say, when you are registering them in all these extracurricular, they're good, right? But start to pay attention. But the strategy I usually use for extracurricular is to say, okay, what can be, what type of exposure do am I looking at as a parent to say, okay, this can be helpful for the child in the nearest, let's say in the nearest future, let's say in the next 10 years. And so I say, okay, what do you want to do? Maybe the child will say, oh, I want to join, football club or something. Good. Okay. So as a mom, I would think, okay, you should also join, let's say, computer club or something like that. It would help you. So one for you, one for your child. It's not everything is, balance it, right? So that's how I choose, some. So I would choose some like, okay, what kind of clubs can I register these children in that can also they can use it to support me as a parent as well. So because many of us, we want our children to be like, maybe to be business person or to be a medical doctor, and you have not started to train that 5 years old to say, this is how you hold your stethoscope, this is how you speak to patients. If that is your goal, everything is strategy. But you now wait, when the child is now 13, the child has lost interest in anything, even the child is thinking, you don't even have time for us, you don't have this, don't tell me I don't want to be a medical doctor, But inside your mind, you want is strategy. It's strategy. So no, what do you want? Yes, we're not saying your child should be what you want the child to be. But even if that is what you would want, there's a strategy behind it, and start it now. Because children is whatever you raise, them to be from 5 years, and the child is saying, oh, it's I'm wearing stethoscope. Allow you take them, to your workplace some days just to experience you. But you now see if the child is not interested, you see the child is not interested. You don't, this child cannot be a medical doctor. So you don't even waste your energy and come when the child is 13 years old and you are now upset with the child that, your mate. So that's how you expose. And if the child is showing interest, then you support and, more exposure. So that's how I choose extracurricular activities as well. So when I'm now, so obviously I let my children joined also all these this coding club and all that. I exposed them, but my children came back, Mom, we're not enjoying this coding club. Right from age 6, I knew my children cannot enjoy coding. In as much as they are saying money is there, and I did not push it because the interest is not there. But all the other things that they were showing interest, we built on it. But if I did not expose them to it, I could not know. And some people, they will now wait till 13, 14, they'll come and do coding club. It might not be easy, even if the child had like interest in it before, they're already like formed and might not be able to expose them to different activities. If they do want this year, expose them to something different. So when you're able to identify what they're good in, that's when you know your talents. Many of us might not know our talents or whatever it is until we've been exposed and say, oh, I'm so good in this. Then as a parent, you help build and enhance that talent or the strength and all that. So leverage your children's strength as well. We see it play out, but pay attention.
That's really helpful. Pay attention to what the child is good at and enjoys. I also like the fact that you said put in what you think is helpful as a parent. So don't completely hand over responsibility to the child in terms of what does the child like, but also think about the future for the child and what you think would be helpful and see. That's really good. Lots of things to think about as a parent. So the ones I wanted to combine, we can't run from the reality. So for example, myself, I tell my husband when I come home, the amount of microaggressions I face in a day in the NHS, being a Black female surgical registrar, because those are unique. It's one thing to be Black, it's one thing to be female, but it's another thing to be Black, female, and in surgery. So everybody has their unique combination of things that they go through. We have to deal with that at work. But then what really hurts is watching our children go through it. So both my children experienced racism as early as when they were 3 years old, and to a horrifying degree, I'll put it like that. So they repeat things that get said to them, and you are absolutely heartbroken. Like if it was easy to just up and I'm going back to Nigeria for those reasons, you would, because it sometimes it's really heartbreaking. So 2 questions. One is, how do you help them deal with racism? Number one, is there a way to prepare them? Because at 3, I wasn't ready to have those conversations with my child. I didn't think I would need to. But then what's interesting is it happened with my first child and then happened with my second child. So by the time it was happening with my second, I felt like I had failed her because I should have known that she would go through that. So that's number one. Is there a way to be proactive? Because in all of this, we're talking about being intentional and being prepared. So that's number one. And then number 2 is when they're facing these things, bullying, whatever it is, there tends to be a change in their behavior. There's a change in the way they look at themselves, in the way they feel about themselves. That we've talked about being attentive. If you're attentive, you notice. I've dealt with it in my own way. So one of the things I've done is I've bought books with Black people in it. I've spoken to them about the beauty of their skin color. I've exposed them to people that look like them. Those are some of the strategies I've taken. But what would be your advice in terms of watching for changes in behavior and in terms of preempting those changes or reacting to those changes without it being a reaction, but being a just in line with everything we've talked about, just taking control of that situation and the experiences and bringing positives out of it.
Okay, let me handle the first part first so that I don't like lose lose the questions. I might need to ask you for the second one, but in case I remember anyway, because so the first one, you said that word, how do we prepare, right? And that's what I would always say, in every part of our lives. When we say, maybe because I'm also a strategy consultant, everything I look at life as there must be a strategy to everything. And when you have a strategy, there's an end goal and you walk backwards to say, how do I achieve that goal? So we all know we found ourselves in this space. When I was coming or whatever it is, we're in a place, it is not our land, right? We are the minority. But many times we want to tell ourselves like, we are, but the other people too that are welcoming you, so to say, that you're coming to meet here, they also are thinking, who is this, right? Because it's now that I'm actually understanding when, we're saying racism, when we say diversity, the importance of it, right? Because it's something I also go to, let's say, my workplace, for example. Let's say you're the only Black woman in that room. I'm not upset that I'm the only Black person but when we're now making conversations, they can't understand. When you have 10 people and you are the only different person, you cannot control how they respond or how they want to do or treat you. because they are also learning. So that's how I always put myself. They are also learning. So as the minority, you also would have to think, I'm moving to this space. And that's what I tell many of the people know. You know that you are moving to a place that is predominantly, let's say, white, for example. What do you expect? Do you expect that they will take you as this different person? They're also learning to say, who is this person? Why is this person like this? It's not something maybe they are familiar with. They're all learning. As we are learning, they too, they are learning. How you give grace to each other. They might think this is the best way that I would, treat, maybe this is how, because they too, they are learning, how do I respond and treat this person that is being different in certain way. So that's where preparation, especially when it comes to children, even as adults. So I'm not upset when they're even having conversation, like, interesting. So some people think like this, some people do stuff like this. And they can never understand where I'm coming from as well. And that's why people are pushing for diversity, that because the person that looks like you can understand you. So that's why you would be more attractive to that person, because you get each other. So, but the other people, you also have to see how you can learn. And they can try to learn, but it depends. Do you want to learn? Do I want to learn? Or let me just understand that this is what I'm dealing with. And that is where I come with. The strategy is, this is where I found myself. How can I get the best situation for myself, for sanity in this space? Because I don't have control over the other person. If the person is not ready to learn, I can't force you to learn about me. I can't force you to like me. I can't force you to accept me. But how can I deal with my situation to say, how can I operate in the best way to get the best from my situation here? And that's how it comes to children. You're moving, at times many of us want to move to a place that maybe it's more affordable. They say, oh, outside London, outside this place, it is cheaper. London is expensive, You also have to think, at what cost? So if I'm moving to a place that I know is predominantly white, you should start to prepare yourself. That no, it's not going to be all fun, right? You as a mom as well, that, okay, I'm going into surgical, you should be prepared. This is where I'm finding myself. So if they are even saying something like, I'm already prepared for you, whatever, I'm going to achieve my own goal. But many times we're not prepared. We just want people to accept us for who we are. Maybe I'm accepting you people. No, you don't have control. If they don't want to accept you, they don't want to. You don't have control over the other person. And that's how you prepare your children. As little, you were not ready for that conversation. But like, me, I always say, there are conversations that you'd have to make. It's just like sex education that people will say, I'm not prepared. By the time your child is 1, prepare. That's and there are age-appropriate ways of communicating this thing. But your child is also prepared. So it's not only here. Children also face bullies where we're coming from, right? But it's just now that is in a different way, and it's from a different, type of people. And it's to prepare the child. As they're going to school, you already know my child will probably be the only colored person. And you expect that the other children would not feel in a certain way. They're not feeling in a certain way because they have anything against. They too, they are shocked, like, who is this person? Where is this person coming from? So when we already know that, then you start to educate your child. As you're going, people might say this to you. You might, because we know what it can come out of children. Children don't pretend. It's how they feel. And it's also a backfill from whatever conversations that is coming from within their own community as well. They're going to say that as it is. So it's the same way you prepare your child to say, okay, this is where, if they tell you this, because, we're different from them, they're trying to understand, because you look, prepare your child, let them know that is the reality of life. My children know that I don't, if they say you look in a certain way, is it true? Yes, yeah, you look like that. And that's why me, for example, I chose London, amongst other things, to say, at least we're so many of us. So the stress is less, the impact is less, right? But when you already have made that decision, and we all know when the child steps into that school, that my child is probably the only, even there are questions we should ask. Like, oh, do you, in the class they're taking your child in, or do you have, other people like us as well that can, the child can be able to maybe relate with and all that. they will not say you should not ask that question, so that you know how to prepare. You know why you're asking, not because if it's not there, but you are going to school, you most likely be the only person that looks, and tell the child, this is your source. This is where you are coming from. You'll probably be the only Black person. So at times they might also be wondering. So you tell the child, they might be saying this, they might be saying this, they might be saying that. This is how. So let's think about it this way. Just, be kind in your words. But if they're hurting you, if they're doing this, let mommy know about it. You raise it with the school, and thankfully we're in a place that your voice can be heard. Yes, you can take a bit, but you can raise it and say, this is unacceptable, with my child. But you have to also educate and empower your child so that your child can even come to you. Because some children, they cannot come. You just see your child sad. You be asking, what's the matter? What's wrong? Mommy, I'm just sad. This person. But they will not be able to articulate what exactly it is. And at times you have to ask questions as well. So when they say something, okay, has this person treated you? Is your teacher treating you nicely? You ask direct question. Not that, I was good today. Fine, okay. Who treated you not like this? Who was unkind to you today? Who was kind to you? Okay, how was the person kind to you? How was the person unkind to you? That's where you start to derive your answers from. And when you have those responses, you're able to now empower your child to say, okay, how do I respond to this? But it comes in diverse ways with various children. And that's why we handle this in a very unique way. So if I say, oh, they should respond to this, that would not work for another scenario. But preparation is very key. Don't ever say, oh, I'm not prepared. When you start to see that you have an issue with something, most likely your children are going to have that challenge as well. And they're not, trust me, when you start to have that conversation, you would know if your child is like, okay, it's fine. The child will not, dive deeper to say, okay. But for some children, when they're actually also feeling that, they would ask you more questions for more clarity, and you're able to now support them more with it. But when we take that conversation away from them, they're not also prepared. That's where preparation comes in. So you already know where you are going. When you know where you are going, everybody knows where they're going. Prepare your child for where they're going. Have those very difficult conversations. If they say I look like that. Oh, you have accent. Yes, now this is how we talk from where we're coming from. Maybe I can learn to speak like you one day, but you not feel bad that you have an accent. Everybody they have accents, right? So is what you choose. Like, I would talk how like I want to talk, unless I want to. Okay, if I want to become, but we have to accept and not deceive ourselves. It's when you are not accepting and not preparing that it starts to affect our own, person. But when you're prepared, when your child says, I'm like this, yes, what do you want to say? But when they are not prepared, this will be looking, they did not tell us that we are different too. They did not tell us that we are this. So preparation, prepare, no matter how young the children, and we know before they can go to school anyway, nursery, before all these things starts to, they're usually like from, let's say, like 3 years old. That's when they start to talk. Before then, it's not so much of an issue, but it's when they can start to, relate. So it's easy for you to track whatever the issue is. Then the second question is, make it clearer.
So the second question you've touched on to an extent, it was, how do you watch for changes in their behavior? Because sometimes these things are happening and you're just noticing. So one of the things, for example, that was the aftermath for both of them was they then refer to people in terms of their color. So that brown-skinned man rang the bell, or the white-skinned man passed the house, and I was. So that's an overt example, but sometimes it's subtle. They just become sad. You had a happy child, all of a sudden that child. So how do you watch for that? Especially, we've talked about our unique situation. So for a lot of us, we're not doing school drop-offs, we're not doing school pickups. So we're missing those interactions immediately after school to see how people are interacting. So how do we pick up those changes when we see that happen?
Yeah. Obviously, when there's some things that, like I would always say, you don't have control over the other person, but you have control over yourself. So now with the children, how are they going to deal with the aftermath of all this? So they're not prepared. Now it's happened, right? So many times they see through us as well. How are you also accepting? Because it's in little conversations, right? It's in little conversations that even you are making, that you're thinking they're not listening to. My boss, this is it. Is it because I'm black? Is it because I'm brown? Is it those type of conversations? If you want to make it with your children, make it in a positive way, so that if you want it to be positive. So let's give an example, random example. So maybe a mom was saying, oh, the child is so lazy. Child's always saying, I cannot do my own work. I'm tired. What is all this? Blah, blah, blah. I said, what do you say? You as a mom, because children don't just talk like that. Me, child psychology, children don't just talk. There's always a root cause. But many times we're not able to identify the root cause. You know, that she just noticed that when many times she'll just be saying, this work, like I should just leave this work. And I said, she just say, I said, they're learning. If your child knows that you are like confident in your own person, like, at times when you're even stepping up, all these people, they've come, all those your children are also picking that energy. It might not be, but when they see that you go somewhere as well, you are very vocal, you're confident in your person, they start to learn to be confident. So first, be your own example, because many of us were not good examples when it comes to that. It's very subtle. You think your children are not saying it, that you are just expressing yourself, but know that when you are also stepping out, step out in confidence and in courage, irrespective of, yes, I know how it feels to be this color in this space, and even to be one out of very, the minority. But be your role model first. Then, when they can see that, it's more helpful because they can see you exude that as well. So now, when they're now referring in some certain ways, the simple thing is, reorientation. Just keep reorientating them, because they're children. They will grow, they will relearn, they would adapt and all that. Say, oh, if you have a problem with them saying this, you say, oh no, you say it like this, you see it like this. So reorientate them. Yes, they've been taught that it is your own duty, and that's why positive reinforcement goes a long way. You might think it's not working now. When some people say affirmations, you just think is just affirmations. No, every morning they recite it. If you see it, if you know that they need that help, right? They need that support. I'm black, I'm beautiful. I'm this, I'm that. I'm so intelligent. I'm the top of my anything you want. By the time they recite it for 1 year, trust me, their confidence we ink. And you don't, like when we were reciting even hours back home, I think by the time they were like 7, we're not reciting anything again, because the energy is already there, and it did not. And trust me, let your children come into secondary school in this phase. That's when you will know it's another level of this young children. So I brought my children obviously at the secondary school level, and it's not like they didn't face challenges, but I didn't go to school one day to say they took control over themselves. We'll be backing you from the the home. This is how it is. So reorientate, even if they say, it's not their fault they're thinking like this. So this is reorientate and keep reorientating. Trust me, they would also evolve. Don't make it look like, oh my God, that's so sad. You can say, why would the person talk to you that way? Anyway, you know what we're going to do, something like that. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to handle it, right? Strong. Yes. No. In a positive way, not that, hey, God, what is all this rubbish? I'm going to go and meet your teacher. Everything is energy, because when they see that energy, they also think maybe something, we are actually not as good as we are, maybe it's true, we need to shout and get upset. But when you see that, okay, you're bringing some sort of positive energy in, the end, it's not like you are taking crap, but it's in a positive way to say that you two, you are higher, right? There's a way we deal with something that, so they too, they start to see themselves. So because they still have a long way to go. Even if you've been in this country 30 years, you're still not the same color. Your color will not change. And it will still play out in different areas, right? But as many times is what you've built in the children that takes them on, on the long run and all that like that. And it's the same way we should also work on ourselves.
Thank you. That's super helpful. So I'll talk about 2 ways that you helped me, because I think that people can find that really helpful, and then we'll come to questions. The first interaction we had was you supporting me through sleep training. And I say it without any reservations that that's the best investment I've ever made in terms of return on investment. And what you did for me was you took my life from where my children were sleeping at all hours, where I couldn't predict the time I had between them sleeping or waking up in the middle of the night, having to cope with that, to a structure where they were asleep at a particular time. And every night I had guaranteed time where I could dedicate to my career, my other interests, my faith, anything else I wanted to do after they were asleep. So that's something that I would recommend if there's anyone on the call or who watches the video later on who thinks they would like this. It transformed my life because I'm a very creative energy sort of person. So if you know me, there's always something I'm doing, something going on. And in that period where I became a mom and relocated, which coincided, I lost that side of myself because I was constantly working, constantly parenting, and there was no break to just myself. So that was one thing you did for me that I'm forever grateful for. The second thing was potty training. So again, lifestyle. I could not potty train my child while I was going to work. I was very fortunate to then get the opportunity of maternity leave. And within 2 weeks, my son, who was, I think, almost 3 or something, was potty trained. Whereas I know that if I was in Nigeria and had support from my mom and my sisters, that would probably have happened when he was like 1.5 or something. So that was something very unique that you did for me. So I'll just bring this to a close now. And what we usually do at the end is we stop the recording and we take questions so that people feel free to ask the questions that they have. And I want to say thank you to Temi for being here with us and sharing so much wisdom. I feel like I'm going to have to watch this video again because there was so much that you said that is really, really important. And the video will eventually go up, so stay tuned to all our channels of communication to know when it's published on YouTube. Thank you, Temi, for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you to everyone who joined. I really always am grateful. Saturday morning is prime time. I say that all the time. And for you to dedicate your Saturday to be with us, to appreciate what we're doing for the community, I don't take you for granted at all. So thank you. Please engage with all our channels to enjoy the support that we bring in Thriving in the NHS. And we'll see you again at the next huddle.